The last particle of light. Standing on top of Mary's Peak at 4,000 feet above sea level, my husband Reed and I look west over an entire mountain range to the Pacific Ocean. Then we turn to scan the Willamette Valley, over a patchwork of grass seed farms, mills, and small towns to the snowy caps of the Cascades, where Mount Hood, Mount Jefferson, and the Three Sisters form the eastern horizon. The shadow of Mary's Peak, our shadow because we're standing on it, casts almost halfway across this expanse. We stand amongst summer wildflowers, iris, blue and white larkspur, fire orange Indian paintbrush, pink phlox, purple penstemon, violets, lupin, speckled foxglove, and spots of color I don't have names for. These are all the flowers that made up my wedding bouquet 40 years ago. Our annual pilgrimage to this place where we exchanged our vows includes a hike to the top of the mountain. In snowy years past, barely anyone was around. But these days, because of climate change, hordes of people follow the path to the summit in t-shirts and shorts with blankets and picnic baskets, taking selfies and playing loud music on their phones. Families with kids and dogs, pods of recently graduated college students, photographers with elaborate equipment are all here to watch the sun go down and capture flowers and shapes of overlapping landscapes. Reed got a new camera and wants to capture the sunset. It's 8 p.m. and the sun still has a ways to go. A chilly wind picks up, and I didn't think to bring a jacket. To hike to the truck and back is too far for my bad hip, so I tell Reed I'm going to head down, get my glass and a box of Pinot, and stay put with the book I brought. I'll watch the sunset through the windshield of the truck in the cozy cab, snuggled into the plush seats that have held the heat of the day. It sounds like heaven. I'm fine if he wants to stay and take pictures. But Reed is torn. He wants to stay as late as it takes to photograph the event. He knows I'm freezing, knows I have a bad hip, knows the sunset won't be as good from the truck, knows by now I'm not going to stay if I'm cold. But it's our anniversary, and he's determined for us to stay together on the mountain where we set our vows, so he's willing to go back down the trail to the truck and get my wine and his polar fleece to keep me warm. I argue, no, really, that's okay, because he has to make it back up as fast as he can if he wants to capture the sunset. I know it's a toss-up between me and photography, and I want to show my devotion by not pressuring him to go back down. But he won't take no for an answer. Even when he thinks out loud, he hopes he won't twist an ankle. I say no again because twisting an ankle wouldn't be worth it, and I'm okay in the truck. But it's our anniversary, and he wants to show his devotion by making sure we spend it together. So he hands me his camera and explains the settings and says to take some pictures in case he misses it. Anyone who knows Reed knows, number 1, he never misses it for anything, and number 2, he has weak ankles. He heads down the mountain at a good clip, pretty steep, over a mile to the truck and back. I start snapping a few pictures of the folded, crumpled Oregon Coast Range to distract myself from the cold. I lie on my belly to get out of the wind and frame those penstemon and Indian paintbrush against yellow-green grasses in the foreground, out toward the powdery blue disappearance of mountains. Blasting wind hits all the surfaces, the humans, the grass, and the big cement structure with weather instruments on top. I'm squinting at the sun, and when I close my eyes, I have sunspots in jagged shapes of the horizon and silhouettes of people standing on rock outcroppings. I alternate, keeping one eye closed and then the other until the spots fade. Down below on the grassy slope, the sound of the wind mixes in with laughter of graduates and little kids crying because they're cold and tired. I'm cold too, and I don't know how long it will take Reed to return or if he'll miss it. I've got his heavy camera bag with multiple lenses over my shoulder and a camera with a long lens. I give a nod to other photographers as I make my way along the path, limping a little toward the road that Reed took to the truck, thinking if I drop down a ways, I might get out of the wind. I tuck up under a small, weather-beaten pine tree on a rock against a cliff, surrounded by violets, and wait for Reed. Pretty quickly, he rounds the corner, half walking, half running, shirt out behind him like a flag. His bare chest and face have a sheen of sweat, the polar fleece and box of wine wrapped in a ball. We can't tell if we missed it or not because we're around the corner from the view. That was fast, I wave from my spot. I ran, he says, out of breath, and keeps his momentum as I slide down the loose gravel, clutching my hip to catch up with him on the road. Where it curves, we keep going straight over the edge to a plush meadow facing that western horizon. A sea of fog has settled in around the lower peaks and overlapping ridges of navy blue, indigo, and dusty mauve. The sun is dropping down. Reed releases his load, grabs the camera gear, and is swapping out lenses like crazy, rapidly shooting hundreds of pictures because the light changes that fast. I've layered up with his polar fleece and wool vest, which is a little wet from his sweat, but I don't mind, and his silver windbreaker because he's still hot from the hike and doesn't need it. I'm drinking wine through a thin plastic straw in a small box. It's not fancy, but it's 13.5% alcohol and red, so I don't really care. I'm warm, and I lean back into the plush living piles of bracken and lupin so thick it holds us up. Then I say, pointing, "Oh my God, the light and the color of that cloud and those layers, do you see it? Get that over there." I'm already a little buzzed from the wine after a couple of sips because I haven't eaten and we hiked and maybe the altitude. I can tell that Reed is annoyed that I'm breaking his concentration, but it's our anniversary and it's just so beautiful I can't help myself until I stop and watch and listen. All the humanity falls quiet. The music and crying kids have stopped and everyone is facing west. There are scattered groups on the road above us. Below, 3 guys are sitting as still as the rock they're standing on, watching. 2 women down below are wrapped in a blanket. We are all casting shadows backwards onto the mountain, and here is where it speeds up. The last moment when the sun touches the earth and then quickens as it drops until the last tiny flicker of sun becomes a particle, and you can literally see those shadows stretch longer and longer out behind us. The 8 minutes and 20 seconds it takes for the last particle of light to reach our eyes, the instants before all shadows disappear. Nobody moves. All in one breath together we see it. I look around. A frozen moment that feels like the highest point on a swing. Then an exhale as we all drop down fast together and up again. Somebody has to move first. Slowly, people start stirring, turning away, picking stuff up, and chattering as they head down the road to the parking lot. Reed didn't miss it, and of all the people, he doesn't turn away. He's still watching because the colors in the darkening sky are changing. New colors we didn't see before. The first star, our anniversary. This is when it gets good, he says.